The silent witness characters. Margaret Hayes, 62-hour narrator. A retired teacher with warm brown eyes and graying curls. David Hayes, 64, her husband of 40 years. A successful architect. Lauren Hayes Patterson, 38. Their daughter-in-law. Married to their son, Michael Hayes, 40, their devoted son. A software engineer, Rebecca Chun, 35, David's colleague. Ambitious and calculating. The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and false hope. I had been lying there for 3 days, my body refusing to cooperate after the stroke had stolen my ability to move, to speak, to let anyone know I was still very much present inside this failing shell. The doctors had been gentle with my family. Minimal brain activity, they said. She probably can't hear or understand us anymore, but they were wrong. So terribly wrong. I could hear everything, every whispered conversation, every held breath, every prayer my son Michael murmured while holding my hand. I felt his tears fall onto my fingers, and my heart broke that I couldn't squeeze back, couldn't tell him I was right here, that I loved him more than life itself. It was Tuesday afternoon when Lauren arrived, my daughter-in-law, the woman my son had loved since college, the woman I had welcomed into our family with open arms, teaching her my mother's recipes, helping her pick out her wedding dress, holding her hand through 2 miscarriages. That had devastated them both. She stood at the foot of my bed for a long moment. I felt her eyes on me, studying my face. Then she moved closer. Her perfume reached me first. That expensive French fragrance David had given her last Christmas. I remember thinking it was an unusually generous gift at the time. Now, pieces were beginning to shift in my mind like a puzzle I hadn't known I was solving. "Margaret," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Can you hear me?" Silence. Just the steady beep of my heart monitor. The gentle hiss of oxygen through my nasal cannula. She leaned closer. Her breath was warm against my ear. "I need you to know something," she said, her voice taking on an edge I'd never heard before. Before they pulled the plug, my heart rate spiked slightly. The monitor beeped faster, but she didn't notice. Or perhaps she thought it was just a random fluctuation. "David and I have been together for 5 years," she continued, her words like poison dripping into my ear. 5 beautiful years. He was going to leave you. After Michael and I announced our divorce, we had it all planned. He was going to retire early. We were going to move to Paris together. Start fresh. The monitor's beeping intensified. Still, she pressed on. "But then you had your stroke. And now," she sighed, a sound mixed with frustration and something darker. "Now we're stuck waiting. Michael is so devoted to you, so noble. But eventually, he'll realize you're not coming back. He'll agree to let you go. And then David and I can finally be together openly." She straightened up, smoothing her dress. "I just wanted you to know. You were always kind to me, and I suppose I owed you the truth, even if you can't hear it." Then she left, and I lay there, trapped in my body, feeling something shift inside me. The grief, the betrayal, the absolute fury. But beneath it all, something else was growing. Determination. I had always been a fighter. I had taught high school English for 35 years, facing down teenagers who thought they could intimidate me. I had survived losing my parents, raising a son through his rebellious years, weathering financial storms and health scares. I had always found a way, and I would find a way now. The next morning, Michael was alone with me during his early visit. He always came before work, sitting in the chair beside my bed, reading to me from the newspaper or just talking about his day. My sweet boy, my beautiful son who deserved so much better than the betrayal surrounding him. I focused every ounce of willpower I had. Move something, anything, let him know. My right eye twitched. "MOM?" Michael leaned forward, his voice catching with hope. "MOM, can you hear me?" I concentrated harder than I'd ever concentrated in my life. My eye twitched again. Then, with agonizing slowness, I managed to open it. Just a fraction. Just enough. Michael's face transformed. He grabbed my hand, tears streaming down his face. "You're in there. You're still in there. Doctor, nurse, someone." The room filled with people. Tests were run. Assessments were made. And slowly, painstakingly, we discovered I could communicate through eye blinks. 1 blink for yes, 2 for no. It would take weeks, they said, to know if I could recover any other function. But this was a start. This was hope. That evening, the whole family gathered. David stood at the back of the room, his face carefully composed into an expression of relief. But I saw the flicker of concern in his eyes when the doctor explained I was cognitively intact. Lauren wasn't there. Michael mentioned she had a Work commitment. I didn't blink to ask more questions. Not yet. Over the following weeks, I worked harder than I'd ever worked. Physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy. Every day was exhausting, painful, frustrating. But every day I pushed through, driven by a purpose that burned in my chest. I needed to speak. I needed to tell Michael the truth, but I also needed to be smart about this. David and Lauren didn't know what I knew. They didn't realize I had heard Lauren's confession, and I could use that. One afternoon, when David thought I was sleeping, he made a phone call in my hospital room. I kept my eyes closed, my breathing steady. "We need to be more careful," he said quietly. "Margaret is recovering faster than expected." "No, Michael still doesn't suspect anything." "I know. I miss you too. Just a little longer, darling." My heart ached, but I kept my composure. Evidence. I needed evidence. Michael had left his phone on my bedside table. When the nurse stepped out, I managed to use my recovering right hand and knock it toward me. My motor skills were still poor, but determination made up for what coordination lacked. I managed to open his voice memo, APP, and hit record, then slid it partially under my pillow. 2 hours later, Lauren visited. David had just left to get coffee. "Margaret," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "you're looking so much better." I blinked once. "Yes." She sat down, glancing at the door. "I suppose you'll be going home soon." That must be such a relief for everyone. I blinked once again. She leaned forward, lowering her voice. "You know, I've been thinking, it would be such a shame if you had another stroke. They say the second one is usually worse. Usually fatal." My blood ran cold, but I kept my face neutral. "Michael would be devastated, of course," she continued. "But he'd recover, eventually. And David would be free. We'd wait a respectful amount of time, naturally. Maybe a year. Then we'd announce our relationship. By then, everyone would just be happy that we'd found comfort in each other during such a difficult time." She stood up, her smile not reaching her eyes. "Just something to think about. Get well soon, Margaret." After she left, I managed to stop the recording. My hands were shaking, but I had it. I had proof. That night, when Michael came for his evening visit, I worked my recovering jaw and tongue, forming words that came out slurred but understandable. "Michael, your phone. Listen." It took him a moment to understand, but when he found the recording and played it, I watched his face change from confusion to disbelief to absolute horror. He played it 3 times, each time looking more shattered. "MOM," he whispered, his voice breaking. "How long have you known?" "Weeks," I managed to say. "Heard. In hospital. When they thought I couldn't hear." Michael sat down heavily, his head in his hands. "Dad and Lauren. My father and my wife." He looked up at me, tears streaming down his face. "What do I do?" I reached for his hand, my grip still weak but present. "You survive," I said slowly. "You let them go. You deserve better. You deserve everything." The confrontation happened the next day. Michael called a family meeting in my hospital room. David and Lauren arrived separately, still playing their parts. Michael simply played the recording. I'll never forget the looks on their faces. Lauren went pale. David's carefully constructed mask crumbled, and I watched it all from my hospital bed, feeling no satisfaction, only a deep sadness for what had been lost and what my son would have to endure. Lauren tried to explain, to justify. David remained silent, his shoulders slumped in defeat. Michael's voice was steady when he spoke. "I want both of you out of my life. Lauren, my lawyer will be contacting you about the divorce." "Dad." His voice broke slightly. "Dad, I don't know if I can ever forgive you. Not just for the affair, but for what Lauren threatened to do to MOM. For what you were willing to let happen. I didn't know about that," David said quickly. "Margaret, you have to believe me. I never wanted you hurt. I fell in love with someone else. It was wrong, but I never wanted you harmed. Get out," Michael said quietly. "Both of you." Now they left, and in the silence that followed, Michael and I cried together, mourning the family we thought we had. My recovery took 6 months. I regained most of my speech, though I still struggled with complex words. My right side remained partially weak, but I could walk with a cane. More importantly, I could hug my son. I could tell him I loved him. I could be there for him as he rebuilt his life. The divorce was ugly. Lauren tried to claim I had been confused, that the recording was taken without consent, but my doctors testified to my cognitive abilities, and her threat, recorded in her own voice, was damning evidence. David moved out of our home. We began divorce proceedings as well. 40 years of marriage, ending not in the golden sunset I'd imagined, but in betrayal and courtrooms. But here's what surprised me. I found I didn't hate them. Not really. I was angry. Yes. Hurt beyond measure. But hate requires an energy I didn't want to expend anymore. 1 year after my stroke, Michael and I had dinner at our favorite Italian restaurant. The one where his father and I used to take him as a child. I've been thinking about forgiveness, he said, twirling his pasta. Not for them. They don't deserve it yet. Maybe never. But for me, for us, I don't want to carry this anger forever. I reached across the table and took his hand. You are wise, I said, my speech still careful but clear. Forgiveness isn't for them. It's for you, too. Set yourself free. Did you forgive them? He asked. I thought about it. Really thought about it. I'm working on it, I admitted. Some days are harder than others. But I won't let them steal my joy, my future. I survived. That's my revenge. Living well. Michael smiled. And for the first time in months, it reached his eyes. Living well. I like that. 2 years later, I walked into Michael's wedding. He'd met someone new, a kind woman named Sarah who worked at the animal shelter. She was nothing like Lauren. She was genuine, warm, and when she looked at my son, I saw real love there. I walked down the aisle with my cane, my gait unsteady, but my heart full. David wasn't invited. He'd sent a card with money. Lauren had apparently moved to Seattle with someone new. As I watched Michael marry Sarah, I thought about that moment in the hospital bed when I heard Lauren's whispered confession. How trapped I had felt. How furious. How devastated. But I had found my way back. Not to who I was before that woman was gone, changed irrevocably by stroke and betrayal, but to someone new, someone stronger, someone who knew that survival itself could be a form of grace. Michael looked over at me during the ceremony and smiled. I smiled back, tears in my eyes. Not tears of sadness, but of joy, of hope, of new beginnings born from ashes. We had survived, both of us, and we would continue to survive, to thrive, to find happiness in spite of everything that had tried to break us. Because sometimes the sweetest revenge is simply refusing to let betrayal define your story. Sometimes it's writing a new chapter entirely, and mine was just beginning.